Can you get the documents you want from a debt collector by demanding them in a debt validation letter? My name is Michael Waslick. I'm one of the lawyers at Ricardo and Waslick here in Florida, and together with my partner, Jason Ricardo, I help people just like you overcome debt collection with dignity. And today we're going to talk about how you can get documents out of a debt collector and whether debt validation letters are the right tool for the job. So let's dive in. As we dive into this question, I want to know, have you asked for documents from a debt collector? What did you ask for? Did you get what you wanted? And why did you ask for the things that you asked for? What was your goal? Tell us in the comments below. We do our best to answer every comment that we get, either in the comment section or the video just like this. And reading your comments helps us decide what videos you want to see more of in the future. Debt validation letters are a hugely popular topic here on the channel. And when we've asked people why they use debt validation letters, what is their goal? Many people have said that they are using debt validation letters to get documents out of debt collectors so they can fight against abusive, harassing, illegal, unfair, or false debt collection efforts. So if you landed on this channel because you're interested in debt validation and your goal is to get documents to fight against debt collectors, stick with this video all the way to the end, and I'm going to tell you how to get exactly what you need. Many people who are fighting debt collection have a lot of questions about the accounts, about the collection efforts, and they want to get documents to back up some of the claims that the debt collectors have made. For example, did this debt collector buy the debt? Did they get an assignment from the original creditor? Do they have any right to collect the debt? Number two, is it actually a debt that you opened? Do they have a wedding signature contract? Do they have some other evidence that you're the one that opened the account, such as a credit application or some other records to show that you're the one that used the account? Number three, some people have questions about the amounts. The amounts don't look right. Maybe there's excessive interest. Maybe there's illegal charges or fees or unauthorized penalties that have been added there to get the debt collector more leverage to extract more money out of you. And you want the documents to see how those numbers were calculated. And maybe you've been online doing some research and you found that the way some people think the best way to get those documents is by using a debt validation letter. A lot of people feel very strongly about the power of debt validation letters. I'm going to dive in and explain to you why it may not be the best tool and show you what actually is the best way to get all the documents you need to beat debt collection for good. So if you don't already know what debt validation is, it is a right that is given to you, the consumer, by federal law, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and it's specifically found in 15 U.S.C. 1692G. And in that particular statute, it says that you have a right to request debt validation or debt verification. It also says that the debt collector has to tell you about your right to request debt verification or debt validation. But here's the problem. That law goes into great detail about what the debt collector must tell you in the initial notice, but it does not describe what must happen when you request that verification. It does not define what verification is. As a result, it can be very difficult to force a debt collector to give you documents using debt validation letters. The statute requires that the debt collector notify you of your right to request verification. And then once you do request verification, it does not say what the debt collector is required to provide. It does not define the word verification, and it only provides you one remedy if the debt collector doesn't give you the verification you're looking for. If the debt collector fails to give you the verification required by law, you can go into court and sue them, but only if they attempt to collect the debt from you without having given you the verification. There are three ways that a debt collector might respond to a debt validation letter, especially one that demands a number of documents. Number one, they might ignore it. They might simply just say, we're not going to respond to it. And if they fail to respond to it at all, they are not allowed to collect the debt from you. Number two, they might provide you some documents, but not everything you asked for. For example, they might provide you with an account statement with your name and address, along with a statement of the amounts due and owing. And number three, they might send you all the documents you asked for. Now, in my experience, number three never happens. I have never heard someone say, I sent a debt validation letter and demanded the wedding signature. I demanded all these documents and I got everything I asked for. I've never heard that happen. And the reason is there's no way to force a debt collector to cough up certain documents just because you've requested them in a debt validation letter. If a debt collector tries to collect a debt without giving you any verification at all, you can sue them under 1692G, put money in your pocket, and possibly even wipe out the debt forever. But if the debt collector gives you an account statement with a name and address and a statement of the amounts due and owing, that is probably going to be enough for them to successfully defeat any attempt by you to force them to cough it up. If you take them to court, you're likely to lose. I'll explain more about that in a moment. And there's no other provision of the law that gives you any leverage to force those documents out of them. But I will tell you in a moment how you can get those documents. So why do I say that there's no way for you to sue a debt collector to make them cough up certain specific documents? Well, it's because the courts have looked at the FDCPA, they've looked at that verification requirement, and they realized that there was no definition of verification. And what they concluded was that it was a very, very low bar. So the courts don't care what you think verification is. The courts only care what other courts have defined as verification. And most courts across the country are going to follow the original opinion that decided what verification was and wasn't. That decision is called Chowdhury versus Galizzo, and it's a 1999 case from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal court that decided this case, and almost every court in the land follows this opinion very closely when they're deciding whether a debt collector can be sued for failure to provide documents in verification. Specifically in this case, the Chowdhurys felt that the debt collector that they were suing hadn't provided the documents they wanted as part of the verification process, but continued to collect the debt anyway. So they sued under the FDCPA. And the federal appellate court decided that the Chowdhurys were wrong. Here's the part of the opinion that almost every court in the land has latched onto to set that very low bar for verification. It's on page 406 of the opinion, and it says, contrary to appellant's contention, verification of a debt involves nothing more than the debt collector confirming in writing that the amount being demanded is what the creditor is claiming is owed. The debt collector is not required to keep detailed files of the alleged debt. Then it goes on to say, consistent with the legislative history, in other words, this is what Congress intended to do. Verification is only intended to, quote, eliminate the problem of debt collectors dunning the wrong person or attempting to collect debts which the consumer has already paid. And then the court goes on to say, there's no obligation to forward copies of bills or other detailed evidence of the debt. Now, it's that detailed evidence of the debt that everybody wants to see. And here the court is saying they don't have to keep it. So you might be asking yourself, if they don't have detailed evidence, if they don't have to keep detailed evidence, how are they going to prove that they have a right to collect the debt and the debt is right? And the answer is they don't have to prove that unless they take you to court, or even better, you take them to court. And that's the secret you've been waiting for me to share with you. Because debt validation isn't a method for you to get detailed evidence. It's just not. The courts have already said that's not the purpose of debt validation. What that means is that if you want proof, you have to be in a court of law. I've already done a video about why getting sued can be a good thing, and mostly that's about the settlement prospects, but this is a second reason why getting sued can be a good thing, because it forces the debt collector to put on proof of their case, and it gives you the right to demand the proof that you need to fight that debt collector and beat that debt, get it out of your life forever. There are two things you need to know about how to demand evidence in a court proceeding. Number one is, what can you ask for? And number two is, how do you get there? In a court case, each side has evidence that they are intending to present. And in any court case, you have a right to demand what's called discovery, which is simply a disclosure by the other side of any documents they have that are relevant to the issues in the case. So if your dispute is about chain of ownership of the debt, you'll want to request documents relating to that chain of ownership. If you believe that someone has stolen your identity and it's not your debt, then you're going to want to demand documents showing how the debt was created, who created it, and how they got the debt in the first place. And if you're disputing the amounts due and owing because you believe that somebody has added illegal fees or punitive interest or other unfair penalties, then you're going to want to demand an account statement going all the way back through the history of the loan. You'll want to demand detailed financial records of the account. And if those records are relevant to the dispute that you're bringing, there's a very good chance that you'll be able to get those documents if you ask for them in the right way. And if the debt collector refuses to give them to you, which they likely will try to do, the judge will order them to give you those documents. And if they still fail to give you the documents, if they violate that court order, the judge is likely to either throw their case out or declare you the winner in that court case. That's a very powerful tool, and it's likely to get you the documents you demand, or even better, help you win your case without them. Discovery is a very complicated area of court procedure, and lawyers have battled over discovery for decades, if not over a century, and what it means and what the obligations are and what they have to produce and what they don't have to produce. So if you find the discovery process confusing, you're not alone, but what you might be able to do is get advice or assistance from someone who has years and years of experience in conducting litigation and using the discovery process to get the documents and evidence that you need. So if you want to get the documents you need to get into court. And then the next question is how? There are two ways most people facing debt collection will end up in court. Number one is when the debt collector sues them to try to collect the debt, to try to get a judgment, to try to get access to garnishment of wages, to try to be able to seize assets and use those tools as a way of squeezing money out of the person they're suing. But there's a second way to get into court. And from the consumer's perspective, it's a better way entirely because it gives you more leverage. It is when you identify something the debt collector has done wrong, some way they've broken the law, and you file suit against them for their debt collection violations. And in the course of your debt collection lawsuit, your FDCPA lawsuit, where you seek money from them, you can demand the documents that you've been asking for all along. Because if you are able to successfully prove that a debt collector didn't have a right to collect the debt, if you're able to successfully prove that a debt collector inflated or lied about the amounts due and owing, if you successfully prove that the debt collector is going after the wrong person, then you very likely have a right to recover money from them. And all those documents that you've been asking for all along are directly relevant to your case, and you have a right to get them. What kind of things can you sue a debt collector for? You can sue for false or misleading statements made in the course of debt collection. You can sue for unfair or deceptive practices that they use in collecting debts. You can sue for harassment or abuse if they threaten you or swear at you or try to get you riled up in order to stir up your emotions so that you just pay the debt to get rid of them. All of those things are potential claims you may have against a debt collector. Every time a debt collector communicates with you in any way, whether it's in writing, on the phone, social media, text message, anything, it's a possibility that they violated the law. So I want to make sure that if you are looking for documents from a debt collector, the first and most important step is to keep detailed records of your own. Keep copies of every letter that they've ever sent you. Keep records of phone calls. Keep copies of text messages and social media messages, because each one of those is a potential violation. And those documents, those letters, those phone calls can be more valuable to you than anything you're asking for with a debt validation letter. Because when a debt collector communicates with you, they may be breaking the law in ways that you can't even imagine. So if you are fighting a debt collector and you've decided that you want documents to prove a particular part of your case, the first step is getting whatever documents you can through debt validation. But once you've got their response to your verification request, you need to decide whether it makes sense for you to go into court to get the rest of the documents you need. And the best way to do that is to figure out if you have a valid debt collection violation case, a valid FDCPA case against that debt collector. So if you're in Florida and want to figure out if your debt collector has broken the law in a way that allows you to sue them, allows you to get into court, and allows you to get the documents you need, we can help you out with that. So if you're in Florida, give us a call. Our number is in the description below, and we'll set you up with a free 30-minute appointment to talk to one of our lawyers about your debt collection matter and to see whether or not you have a right to sue your debt collector. If you're not yet ready to call and you want to learn more about debt collection, watch the video that I'm going to put up on the screen right now. It talks about some of the ways debt collectors break the law and how you can sue a debt collector if they are breaking the law. If this video has been helpful for you, go ahead and hit that like button so that I know to make more videos just like this one. And if you know somebody who could use this information, click on that share button and send this video directly to them so they can benefit from it as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.